Welcome to episode 11 of Reality Podcast. I am your host, Ricky Valero. On today's episode, I'm going to be recapping the Snake season finale. We had our first ever season of the Snake. And you know what? Even through the highs and lows and the different competitions and the different ways you do it in a first season, I found myself really enjoying what transpired throughout the season. I really hope that we get the opportunity to get a second season. But the synopsis of the finale is this: the remaining contestants compete in 2 challenges for a coveted spot in the final saving ceremony. Decisions made throughout the game come back to bite the final 2 competitors, whose fate lies in the hands of their fellow snakes. And they all knew the final bite season finale of the Snake. We started off with 15 mass manipulators, which I think it goes up to 17 because we had 2 late bloomers in the show. And we were down to the final 6 of Frank, Alyssa, Jordan, Jack, Derek, and Brett. So it's exciting to see that unfold. But we knew that this finale was going to have some people eliminated early on because there was still 6 remaining. So post Snake Pit, the group is walking out. And as they're walking out, Jim's sitting there with his just smug look that he has had each and every week on the show. And he says, the finale starts now. So there is going to be 2 challenges over the next 24 hours. The 2 winners will face off one-on-one in the first ever Snake. The game is coincidentally enough called Snake Eyes. The first person to roll Snake Eyes will be one of the 2 finalists in the grand finale. The other 4 that do it will move on to the final challenge. The final player that hasn't rolled a Snake Eyes will be eliminated from the competition. This went back and forth for quite a while. We were watching them kind of roll the die. Brett on his second roll, boom, automatically into finale, right? So it was funny because Jack blew on the dice right before he did it. He rolled it, Snake Eyes. We kind of see some back and forth. We see some misses. I can only imagine how long. I meant to ask the winner and the runner-up how long this scene took, but I think it took a little while. But Frank is the second one. Jordan, the next one. Alyssa is in. And then it was down to Derek and Jack for the final spot. Jack makes it happen, sending Derek home in this, meaning we're down to our final 5 less Derek. So it's Frank, Alyssa, Jack, and Jordan who will compete in the final competition, with Brett already solidifying his spot. Next, we had another interesting competition. They will have 6 crates with 2 incomplete sides. They will each spell out their occupation and put the crates into order of elimination. So this was an interesting back and forth because Frank started off strong. Alyssa came in a little hot. Jack was coming in hot. But then there was a moment where Jack couldn't figure out who the teacher was, which I don't really think that I blame him in the moment because it was Amanda? No, Christina. Christine was the teacher. And I even forgot about it in the moment just now. But Christine was a teacher, and she was like such a late person added to the game. She really wasn't. She didn't add such a threatening dynamic to the show. That to me was interesting, right? So they had the, that dynamic. And then halfway through, Frank gets hurt. And we kind of hear him say, if I ask for medic, I'm going to be eliminated, right? So at that point, I'm thinking it's a wrap. Like Frank is donezo. Alyssa's pushing through. Jack's pushing through. Jordan and is it just Jordan? Yeah, Jordan really wasn't a factor in my opinion here, right? Because you have Frank, Alyssa, Jack, and Jordan competing. So yeah, Frank. I didn't feel like we saw a whole lot of Jordan in this scenario. So to me, it was like down to Alyssa or Jack to see who is going to be in the finale. And out of nowhere, Frank pops up mid-competition and powers through it and completed the challenge. So Brett versus Frank in the finale. Who's going to take home the $100,000? So we go back to the Snake Pit. Brett and Frank moved to the top of the field, which was interesting because you would think that maybe they would be in the Snake Pit. There's 8 crates below them, and we have the return of the 8 people that won the Snake throughout the season. So we had Derek, our return of our favorite Catherine. We had Jacob. We had Jordan, McLean, John, Jack, and Alyssa, all the winners who had won the snake throughout the entirety of the season. Each one of them, now Brett and Frank have the power to figure out who is going to award them the $100,000. On paper, this is how I map things out. Derek, I think, would have voted for Brett. Jack would have voted for Brett. McLean would have voted for Brett. Catherine, I was 50-50 on, right? Jacob, 50-50 on. And then, of course, Alyssa, Jordan, and John, I was thoroughly convinced would vote for Frankie. So what happens now is they have to collectively agree on the first person to eliminate. They both agree on Catherine, which is, I think, the first of several bad moves that Brett makes throughout this entire thing. There's two people that I felt like were 50-50 that could have been swayed with Jacob and Catherine were the two people I really feel like could have been that would have voted for Derek that weren't amongst the group that you would see, right? Alyssa, you knew would vote for Frank. Jordan, you knew would have voted for Frank, right? So I had those two in my pocket. And then Frank wisely eliminates Jack, Derek, and McLean because it came down to McLean and John. John, he eliminated Jacob instead of John. I don't understand. John literally helped Frankie win a competition 3 weeks ago and then gave him the advantage the following week. I don't understand this. This was such a bonehead mistake. John got to pick the winner, and of course he picked Frankie. This made no sense. No sense to me at all. I had this conversation with Brett. I was like, man, what are you doing? I have an interview that's going to release with Brett and Frankie that will release tomorrow morning. You'll get to hear me talk to both the runner-up and the winner of the snake. But yeah, I mean, but also on the flip side, I don't really feel like the odds were not in Brett's favor here because of the dynamic of who was left, right? It was all about chance. But I do think Catherine might have voted for him and Jacob was 50-50. So I feel like he made the mistake of he should have eliminated John and then Frank would have eliminated Derek. And then from there, we would have seen that dynamic unfold. But that being said, what do you guys think of the winner of the snake? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in all season long to the snake. I will be back covering a new show very, very soon.